David,
Roger.
how's it going?
Good. Another day, another episode.
Another day, another episode. It's pretty exciting. I think we're on a good run here. I think it'll be only a matter of time before we're, producing this in some studio in California, have lots of sponsors knocking on our door. These are the early episodes that the real fans will find. Welcome to Common Ground. It's the podcast for getting the bite-sized overviews of big conversations. It can be across anything: finance, sports, tech, culture. David and I like to look into any topic and prepare you for any conversation that you might find. Now, today's topic is pretty exciting. It's quite catchy, and that's because we're talking about K-pop. You've probably seen K-pop. It's catchy songs, flashy dance moves. It's a global cultural phenomenon. Now, this pop music is just a genre that's been like a tsunami, because not only are the tracks really easy to sing along to, they're extremely well produced, extremely well choreographed. Each thing is carefully chosen and polished. Just to give you evidence around that, we saw the K-pop Demon Hunters movie has been #1 for 7 weeks in a row on Netflix. So not only is it catchy, but it is popular on Netflix and around the world. I think let's start first with introduction. David, what is K-pop? Give us a bit of an understanding.
So what is K-pop? Literally, it stands for Korean pop music. But you can't really define it within a specific genre. So it has a lot of different elements. I think K-pop has got a lot of pop elements, but a lot of hip-hop, EDM, even rock music. It's a little bit genre-defying, I would say, outside of the fact that it's all from Korea. I'd say the main thing that unifies all K-pop music, though, is that the choreography, the production, the visuals is super, super slick. It's almost perfection in terms of the quality of performances. Another thing that's interesting about K-pop is it's built around the structure of idol groups. So K-pop idols are the individual performers within K-pop groups, and these idol groups can be between 4 and 10 members, and they have defined roles. So if you remember the boy bands and girl bands from the 90s, where you have the pretty one, you have the vocalist, the singer, the rapper, the dancer, you have these kinds of archetypes within K-pop idol groups. Fans are a huge part of the equation. There's an insane amount of interaction between the fans and the groups. And the fans aren't generally just casual listeners that listen to the songs every now and then. They're massive communities. They have their own languages and shorthands, symbols and hand signs, etc. To understand K-pop in a conversation, there's 3 things that you should know about that we're going to go into detail in a bit. Firstly, it's super international. Even though K-pop is in the name, it's not just a Korean thing. Secondly, it's super carefully produced. They have essentially a system for producing hits. And the fandom culture is almost as important as the music itself.
Yeah, it is absolutely global. It is multifaceted as well. I think that's the thing, the amount of power that it has. In terms of how global it is, do you want to talk a little bit about where it sits and how it's become such a phenomenon?
Absolutely. So I'd say 10 years ago, K-pop was a little bit more niche, but now it's absolutely mainstream, and it's definitely not confined just to Korea or Koreans anymore. Probably one name you may have heard of, even if you don't follow K-pop, is BTS. They're the most popular male idol group, and they became the first Korean group to hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. And they've sold over 30 million albums worldwide, which is insane. BLACKPINK, who's probably the most popular female idol group, their YouTube channel has over 93 million subscribers. So it's actually one of the biggest music channels globally across all genres. If you count up the South Korean music industry as a sort of an export, it's almost $1 billion in 2022. So it's huge. And that's triple what it was in 2016. So you can see that the growth has been exponential. There's over 500 concerts worldwide every year. It's not just in Seoul. We have here in London, the BST Hyde Park, which is like a big summer concert series. Last year, BLACKPINK was headlining one of those days. So if anyone says to you, K-pop is just a fad, it's just for Koreans, it's a multi-billion-dollar global industry. It's absolutely here to stay.
And that's amazing, right? A K-pop group where a lot of the songs aren't necessarily in English or the top of Billboard or top 100. That's wild. right? It's just to show just how much reach they have. You mentioned a little bit about how they structure it because everything is really well thought out and produced and carefully chosen. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the business model? How do they build these specific groups and what's the thinking behind it?
So the K-pop industry is super corporatized and systematic. So you have this idol
Right.
system. Basically, you have different entertainment businesses within Korea, and they recruit teenagers or even preteens, sometimes as young as 12 or 13 years old, and they train them for years. They go into these kind of training camps. They're learning to sing, they're learning to dance, they're learning PR, they're learning English so that they can be performers worldwide. By the time they debut, they're polished brands already. Right now in South Korea, there's over 300 active idol groups, and there's over 1,000 trainees in the system at any one time. Think of it kind of like an enormous version of X Factor or
Yeah.
American Idol or something like that, right? It's just a system that runs all the time, creating new idols. And they have this concept called comebacks. I don't know why they call it this, but normally an idol group will be performing for a number of months and then they'll take a little break and then they'll normally come back with a new album and
Yeah.
then do a huge promotional tour around that album. The pace is absolutely relentless. An idol group might release 2 to 3 albums or singles every single year, whereas a Western group, think
Yeah.
about like some of these rock bands, they might release an album like every 5 years or something like that. So you can just see the amount of content that they're creating. That's why this industry is so profitable. It's generating $10 billion of revenue every year. However, that relentless pace and that extreme pressure to perform also brings with it a darker side, I would say, because it's very corporatized. A lot of these kids get locked into really long contracts. They have super grueling schedules, insane amounts of pressure. They even have this thing, a term called slave contracts, which is a very emotive word, but basically means that these idols are stuck in a contract with that company for years and they're really difficult for them to get out of. They don't have a lot of freedom about how they express themselves, their personal life. It's all tightly controlled. And so there's a lot of burnout and mental health issues in the K-pop industry. And if you've seen any of the documentaries about Blackpink or BTS, etc., you'll see some of this in there as well. So while the system produces insanely talented, world-class, super polished performers, there's also the high pressure. It's not for everyone.
And it's quite wild, right? Like you even can hear like the Australian Idol stories, right? You have the people that get they make it. They may not necessarily do that well because they might have a few hit singles and then kind of they become out of the limelight. But it seems like K-pop's got the right formula, but they probably go too hard, right? In terms of the fans, they're obviously the fans really make that group popular and will dictate the money behind it and the contracts they give them. So, what makes K-pop fans different?
The passion these fans have for their chosen groups is through the roof.
Yeah,
Like I can't compare it. Maybe only, Swifties or something like that is
Bieber,
kind of
yeah,
comparable, right?
yeah,
For instance, BTS's fans are called the BTS Army, and it's estimated to be around 40 million people worldwide that are part of this BTS Army, right? And they're not just listening to music, they're participating in events. For instance, in 2020, famously, the K-pop fans flooded a political rally with fake registrations to try and show their influence. And also, they participate in the business of the K-pop idol groups as well. So crowdfunding is super common. For instance, in 23, Blackpink fans raised over 100K in less than 2 days for climate change in the name of the group, which is pretty incredible. And you even see them skewing the numbers on online platforms. Stray Kids, who's another group, when they released their album, the fans kind of coordinated their listening efforts to push them to break a world record for Spotify streams in a single day. So that the fans kind of all organized and listened, okay, we're going to all listen to this one song all day on repeat to try and break this record for our group that we're a fan of. So I think that's the main thing that sets them apart. And if you meet a K-pop fan in the wild, don't underestimate the fandom. They're absolutely deeply involved generally in the groups that they follow.
seems like they all work pretty well together. It's a massive community. 100 grand is wild in 2 days. We always have to leave everybody with a question to impress. Maybe they're at a dinner party and someone's saying, "Have you seen K-pop Demon Hunters?" Or they're saying, "Have you heard that catchy new song from BTS?" So, what's the question we want to leave by our listeners?
Sure, I think there's one question, sorry, that will get the K-pop fans talking, and it links nicely to another episode that we did recently, which is, do you think that the expansion of AI-driven virtual idols, for instance, Hybe or Mave, is the future of K-pop, or will fans always prefer that real human connection? And I think the reason that this is interesting is because K-pop is already so highly produced that it kind of almost sounds fake, So it's not something that's difficult for them to create using AI. You can see groups like Mave, who debuted in 2023, their debut single racked up over 30 million views on YouTube. It's an interesting question around ethics, around who should profit from performance, and how important is humanity in terms of fandom and being part of a performance.
It's wild, right? It does make sense though. It's so highly organized and structured and controlled. Of course, you're going to create like an animated AI version, right? Just notable. Look, I've learned a lot. This has been really good. I'm definitely going to go listen to some K-pop now and kind of figure out what this number one was so popular. Thanks so much, David. And thanks, our listeners. Thanks for another episode of Common Ground, and we'll see you on the next one.